of the greatest pressures believers face is not open persecution from enemies, but the subtle, powerful pull to agree with the majority, to go along with the crowd rather than standing apart. It is the pressure to stay quiet when others are speaking loudly, to nod along rather than stand up and stand apart, to blend in rather than risk being different. Scripture shows us again and again that some of the most pivotal moments in history hinged not on the size of the crowd, but on the courage of one person who refused to give in to it, one voice willing to stand for truth, even when that voice stood all alone. Here I am standing at the Scrolls of Fire monument in the Martyrs' Forest in the Jerusalem hills. Behind me are two massive bronze scrolls. Etched into them are scenes of the Jewish people's journey, moments of destruction, exile, resistance, and return. You see figures pressed by suffering, surrounded by overwhelming forces, yet as history recounts, refusing to let go of their identity, their faith, and their testimony. It tells the story of a people who, in the face of immense pressure, refused to surrender the truth of who they were and the God they belonged to. It brings to mind a lesser-known prophet found in the scriptures, Micaiah. Like the people remembered in these scrolls, Micaiah stood alone before kings, armies, and false prophets, faithfully proclaiming God's truth, even when it was unpopular, even when it came at great personal cost. His life reminds us that speaking the truth often comes with a price, yet God honors those who remain faithful. Like Elijah, Micaiah also prophesied during the reign of King Ahab. Now, Ahab is widely known as one of the most wicked kings of Israel, due largely to the influence of his wife Jezebel, who was a devoted worshipper of Baal. The showdown between Micaiah and Ahab is recounted in 1 Kings chapter 22. The scene is set in Ahab's court, his palace in Samaria, where he was visited by King Jehoshaphat of Judah. The two kings were on friendly terms, so Ahab asked Jehoshaphat to join him in battle to reclaim Ramoth-Gilead, an ancient Israelite city under Syrian control. Jehoshaphat agreed in principle, but requested that they first inquire of the Lord. Ahab then gathered about 400 prophets who swarmed before the kings, proclaiming victory and prosperity. With one voice, they declared that God would surely deliver Ramoth-Gilead into the king's hand. But Jehoshaphat was not convinced. He asked whether there was a prophet of the Lord, specifically whom they could consult. Ahab admitted that there was one, but complained that he hated the prophet because he never prophesied anything good for Ahab, only disaster. Still, at Jehoshaphat's urging, Ahab sent for the prophet Micaiah. As they waited, the 400 prophets continued their performance. One of them, the false prophet Zedekiah, son of Kenanah, crafted iron horns and dramatically declared that the king would use them to gore the Syrians until they were destroyed. The others echoed his message, reinforcing the appearance of unanimous divine approval. The messenger who went to fetch Micaiah warned him that all the other prophets were speaking in favor of the battle and urged him to do the same. But Micaiah's response was simple and resolute. He would only speak what the Lord told him. Now imagine the scene when Micaiah arrived. Two powerful kings seated in royal splendor, hundreds of prophets proclaiming success, a charged atmosphere of expectation and pressure. Now, Scripture does not tell us what Micaiah felt, but opposing the united voice of so many prophets must have been very difficult and taken remarkable courage. When Ahab asks Micaiah whether they should go up to battle, Micaiah initially echoed the words of the other prophets. "Go and prosper," he says, "for the Lord will deliver it into the hand of the king." But Ahab was not fooled and demanded the truth. Micaiah then declared what God had really shown him: Israel scattered like sheep without a shepherd. It was a message of defeat and of Ahab's death. One man speaking a difficult truth against a room full of comforting lies. Micaiah further described a vision of the Lord seated on his heavenly throne, asking who would entice Ahab to go into battle and face defeat. A spirit stepped forward and offered to become a lying spirit in the mouths of the king's prophets, which the Lord permitted. This was an extremely risky and bold message. With this vision, Micaiah exposed the entire prophetic spectacle for what it was. These were not voices of truth, but instruments of deception to tell the king what he wanted to hear. Micaiah was calling the others out as false prophets, as messengers of a lying spirit. The false prophet Zedekiah reacted immediately. He struck Micaiah on the cheek in front of everyone and mocked him. "Which way did the Spirit from the Lord go from me to speak to you?" he said. Ahab ordered Micaiah to be imprisoned until his safe return. Micaiah pointed out that if the king did return in peace, then the Lord had not spoken through Micaiah. Ahab ignored the warning and went to battle anyway, disguising himself while leaving Jehoshaphat in his royal robes to distract the Syrians. Though Jehoshaphat drew enemy fire at first, the Syrians soon realized their mistake and withdrew. Despite his attempts to disguise himself, Ahab was struck by a random arrow between the joints of his armor and slowly bled to death, thus fulfilling the word of the Lord. Scripture does not tell us what became of Micaiah. His story fades from view, but his witness does not. Micaiah stood alone against the crowd. He refused to soften the truth, even when surrounded by voices of approval, power, and influence. He paid a price for it, but he was faithful and steadfast. His story reminds us that truth is not determined by numbers, volume, or popularity. The most widely accepted narrative is not necessarily the true one, and speaking truth in such an environment may cost us. But silence, or even caving into the pressure from the majority, costs far more. Micaiah's courage reminds us that standing for truth is rarely easy. It may even mean speaking when everyone else is silent, standing apart when the crowd urges conformity, and facing opposition for the sake of faithfulness. But Scripture shows us that one faithful voice, no matter how alone, can change the course of history. So today, let us ask ourselves, will we be like Micaiah, willing to speak truth even when it is unpopular? Or will we let the pressure of the crowd silence us? The call is the same for us now as it was then, to stand firm, to speak boldly, and to trust that God's truth is more powerful than the voices of the many. One truthful voice can make all the difference.
If this teaching blessed you, help us pass the blessing on. Ignite the Truth is brought to life through the generous support of Christians around the world. Partner with us, share it widely, and get ready. Another teaching from Israel is coming your way next week.